kilos now. Over the winter, been training at altitude. Aston have looked to him to try and win this race overall, and look at what he's doing. He's got the diminutive Julian Arredondo from Trek Factory Racing to this right-hand side. This is an impressive display, but look how fit and lean this man is on the left-hand side in blue.
Yeah, Fuglsang and Arredondo, very different riders in stature. Similar power-to-weight ratios up this steep ascent of the final climb of the day. They're on the Michaelskreuz. They're on stage 2 of Tour of Switzerland. Fuglsang from Astana has a little look over his shoulder to see what sort of damage has been done. Well, extensive to say the least. How many climbers are going to be able to survive in this heat? As we see the man sitting 4th in the group at the moment is Geraint Thomas. Great performance from him in the prologue yesterday.
Also there's Sergio Henao as well, looking pretty comfortable riding about 4th wheel, but look at the devastation behind it, that surge from the Danish rider on Astana. What a season they're having so far. A rider that's been very, very quiet this year. But look at what's happening at the front there. We've got a group of about 10 riders going clear. Geraint Thomas and Team Sky sat in 3rd wheel. Look at the riders strewn all over this sinuous climb.
Wow, how many of those riders are going to be able to get back on? There's 12.3 kilometres remaining from the top of the hill through to the 12.7 kilometres, so a little bit south of 13 kilometres in total for the riders who get shelled on this climb to get back into contention. And I'll tell you, if you're getting dropped at this point, well, it could be curtains, because there's still quite a lot of this climb to go, and the steepest part of it is still remains. It's Team Sky well represented at the front. It's Geraint Thomas, their GC man, sitting 4th wheel.
There's a couple of riders also there from Katusha in the white and red. Simon Spilak is there. It looks like Moreno also there. Spilak moving on up on the right-hand side. You remember him. He's finished, I think he's finished 2nd at least 3 times in the Tour of Romandy. Likes the roads of Switzerland. Also there is the Spanish national road champion. Another acceleration here from Fuglsang.
Oh, he's going well, isn't he? A rare opportunity for Jakob Fuglsang to try his luck for his own ambitions. And he's the leader of the Astana squad, and he's going very well indeed, as he's tracked by the best riders of the general classification contenders, scrabbling to stay in contention there. Jan Bakelants from AG Tour La Mondiale has his teammate Domenico Pozzovivo.
Daniel Moreno also there riding in 3rd wheel, so Katusha well represented, but it's good to see Pozzovivo back. Also a rider from Lampre and another one from AG2R just trying to close the gap. But Fuglsang looks like a different rider at the moment.
Geraint Thomas looks good, doesn't he?
Geraint Thomas, we did have a word with him. He said he's feeling pretty good. This is the, looks like Atapuma on the left hand, on the right hand side. Little Colombian has taken a fall, big hole in his shorts.
Oh, disappointing and then difficult moment for Atapuma. Sylvain Dillier has also been on the deck. Fell off in the prologue yesterday. Most extraordinary crash. Managed to get himself back up on his bike, dusted himself off. He's back into contention again today, and looks like Sergio Henao isn't much enjoying this at the moment.
Not at all, but there's 2 riders from FDJ there. Steve Morabito, the Swiss rider. There's Peter Sagan, and also Thibaut Pinot also there for FDJ. This is a really elite group of riders. Sagan has been detached as Geraint Thomas goes to the front. Fuglsang still there. Danny Moreno in the centre, and in the white and black on the left-hand side of your screen for Trek Factory Racing is Julian Arredondo.
Sorry, Matt, just getting a bit excited there, because look at Tom Dumoulin. He's leading the group behind in their efforts to get back into contention. 4th overall in this race 12 months ago. We think of him as a time trialist, but he can get up hills pretty well as well. 3.75 kilometres, clearly not beyond his ambitions. As a little bit further back, Philippe Gilbert, a man that many had targeted for success today, finds himself in a little bit of difficulty. Frank Schleck, former winner of this race, just 2 former winners in this race, the other being Fabian Cancellara, finding this tempo being set on the climb, the final climb of the day, a little bit testing and challenging indeed. We're inside the final 2 kilometres of this climb. Summit reached, 12.7 to go.
Just look at the body strewn all over the side of this climb. A little look down, just seeing the damage that has been caused. It's Geraint Thomas, Welshman on Team Sky, one of the most rounded riders in the peloton, and attack there by Julian Arredondo.
Well, he looked like he was suffering a little bit under the efforts of Geraint Thomas, but he was just baring his teeth. He's done that again. This time, he's put a little bit of daylight between himself and that group. Several riders managing to get them back into contention. The group had swelled a little bit, indicating that the tempo had been backed off a little bit from those riders at the front. But Arredondo, well, he's not really getting. And here comes Fuglsang, and it looked like Geraint Thomas just able to react to that. So Fuglsang puts in another acceleration. That's going to shell some riders. Tom Dumoulin is one of the riders suffering there.
Tom Dumoulin trying to get back on terms, but it's important he doesn't panic. Remember, he knows this race was 4th overall last year. It's not just about time trialling, but these sudden accelerations are putting him in difficulty. But there he is, managing to get back onto this group. Another look round from Geraint Thomas. In the centre of your screen, Thibaut Pinot, remember 3rd last year in the Tour de France. And there's what's happening at the back.
Albacini, Swiss rider, is picked out. Good prologue time trial from him, the local man. Really not much enjoying this hill. It would be nice to see what's happening a little bit further ahead, because it's really kicking off in a big way. Fuglsang looking very strong. So too is Geraint Thomas. Seems ready, willing and able to respond to any acceleration that is presented to him.
Geraint Thomas responding, particularly making sure he was responding to Fuglsang. But the other rider that well, shut down the attack of Fuglsang was Simon Spilak.
Spilak goes to the front. Geraint Thomas once more. He's watching and waiting and seeing what's going to happen.
Another attack by Thomas now. He really is in imperious form at the moment.
Miami had someone and Geraint Thomas has another little go and has a little look over his shoulder. It's a little 1-2 thing going on at the moment between Geraint Thomas and Jakob Fuglsang. They're putting all the hurt into the other riders, just losing the shot for a moment. Who's going to be able to respond? Spilak trying to winch himself back into contention. Arredondo doesn't look as if he's able to respond. Now we have 3 up front. Inside the final 13.5 kilometres, inside the final, 700 metres, 800 metres or so at the top of this hill. Spilak really suffering. 2 up front, really putting it, and they're putting a little bit of daylight between themselves and the rest of the group. Fuglsang looks very strong indeed. Geraint Thomas is exploring his abilities as a rider, isn't he? There's been so much talk about what exactly he could do. Could he be the new Bradley Wiggins?
Well, at the moment, I mean, he can do it on all terrain. And the thing that interests me and amazes me so much about Geraint Thomas is his versatility, his ability to switch and lose weight. He put on weight. He was light in the early part of the season. He took the Vuelta to Algarve, was up there in the top 10 in Paris-Nice, had a nasty crash there, put on a few kilos for the Classics campaign, took the GP E3, was one of the main protagonists all through the Classic season, took his foot off the gas a bit, but then had to train again and lose weight. But look at what he's doing here on these climbs. I think if he turns his focus to the Grand Tours, we could see a possible future Grand Tour champion, or at least a contender.
A bit more shadow boxing between these two riders. I'm thinking less of Spilak. He just seems to be hanging on like grim death. How much time do these 3 need up front to try and hang on for the stage victory? Because increasingly, I'm starting to believe that it will be these 3, or perhaps even just 2 of them, that contest the final mountains points of the day. Not that that's really of much concern to them. There's still a very impressive performance going on from the front of the group chasing. Tom Dumoulin doesn't seem to be able to respond to the accelerations, but what a tempo he's able to set up the climb.
He's a big rider. He's 1.83 metres, about 6'3", very, very tall indeed, but very, very powerful. He certainly won't panic, but what he's managing to do is keep the tempo high, keep a smooth rhythm on a gradient like this. Unless you're one of the purest climbers, you just need to ride within yourself. Don't put yourself into the red. But look at the effort here by the rider from Giant Alpecin. I think that gap is enough. Only 11 seconds for him to get back on over the top. But look at Thibaut Pinot on his wheel, fighting to stay in contact with the rangy Dutchman.
What an amazing performance from Tom Dumoulin. He's a great time trialist. We think of him as a flat-earth society man, but look at the way he's charging up this climb. He's closing the gap. It's gone from 10 seconds back to 2. Spilak is hanging on like grim death, and it's a little bit of a fight between Geraint Thomas and Jakob Fuglsang. If I was asked to pick one from 2 here on the climb, I'd say Fuglsang looks pretty strong indeed. But what a Classics campaign Geraint Thomas had, so don't rule him out for stage honours. The question is, though, will they have enough of a gap on the group behind? I don't think so. Surely they're going to be able to get back on.
I would imagine so. It's with the gap only being 5 or 6 seconds out, if that. An amazing, smooth ride, powerful display of determination, grit and doggedness from the Dutchman Tom Dumoulin. Fuglsang takes the climb.
It's Jakob Fuglsang that leads them across the Michaelskreuz, the final climb of the day. But look how close Tom Dumoulin and the rest of the chasers are behind. There's virtually nothing between them, and there's several other riders too, including Domenico Pozzovivo and 1 or 2 others as we get a little bit closer that will hope to get back into contention across the top of this climb.
It's good to see Pozzovivo there, just hanging on the back of this group.
Great to see him back racing, isn't it, after his well, it was an awful crash.
It certainly was, yeah. It was a crash that I was commentating on, and it looked very, very bad. Great to see him back. He came back to the Giro only 3 days later. The the junction hasn't quite been made yet. There's still a couple of seconds, but I'm sure that when this road evens out, there will be a bit of a regrouping at the front. It says 8 seconds. It certainly isn't that, Declan. It's only about a handful of seconds now to that small group contender leader, and it's Thibaut Pinot now from FDJ in the white, just closing down the gap.
The junction is made, pretty much. 3 riders up front. Fuglsang may not at this point be aware. Gets a little bit of a dig out from Spilak. Fuglsang has a look over his shoulder, realises that they're not going to stay clear, but it is a very small group indeed that are fighting it out.
It looks like Fuglsang does have a teammate with him there, just sat in the back in the pale blue. So 2 from Astana there, definitely 1 from Lampre Merida. We have the race leader sat in the mix. Thomas goes again on the descent, getting nice and aero. Very technical, twisting descent.
He's absolutely flying, still able to steal a glance over his shoulder and has a gap, and that might be exactly what he needs, because Geraint Thomas is capable of riding solo at a rate that is, well, difficult for even a well-organised group behind to close down, but he is a little bit vulnerable because he doesn't have any teammates. Having said that, Fuglsang manages to just get back on, and that was a little bit sketchy, wasn't it, as he went through that left-hander and changed gear, Geraint Thomas.
Well, when you look at the background of Fuglsang, just in your picture now, one of the big favourites for this race. He's an ex-mountain biker, so pretty used to going around corners, throwing the bike around, and he shut that gap. Braked very, very late into that corner, and they was able to shut the gap and get back onto terms with Geraint Thomas. Oh, a nasty drain on the left-hand side.
Yeah, you don't want to put that there.
Pozzovivo just moved round that.
Good descender, Pozzovivo. Despite his diminutive stature, he really does get off the top of hills pretty well. Having said that, I wouldn't be at all surprised if he wasn't quite as brave as he has been of late after that crash in the Giro d'Italia. Doesn't seem to have affected him now. And will those 3 riders, I think Ben Hermans might be in there as well, will they manage to get back into contention? So 2 riders up there for the Astana squad with Jakob Fuglsang.
Another attack by Thomas on the right-hand side, taking the opportunity to try and go ahead. It's actually Pinot who's gone clear. Thomas senses the danger. The Frenchman took a fantastic win on the Queen stage of the Tour of Romandy. This is a great attack by these 2, and it's Simon Spilak trying to close them down.
Geraint Thomas goes again, and this is the only way that he knows how. We saw so much of this in the spring as he was, well, an absolutely fantastic spring campaign. Spilak recognised the danger. Was it Moreno?
I think it was Moreno, actually. Spilak was back, looked a little bit more like the Spaniard. Moreno coming across that gap, getting in that aerodynamic tuck. It doesn't look like the Frenchman wants to work, but they've opened up quite a nice lead here. It now falls to the wheels of Fuglsang and his teammate to try and shut this down.
2 become 3 up front. We're inside the final 10 kilometres of the second stage of Tour of Switzerland. Tom Dumoulin recognises the danger, but he's already done amazing work in trying to close down those 3 riders through to the top of the summit and on the descent, and now worrying a little bit that his jersey could be going north. Having said that, those 3 riders have a very, very narrow advantage indeed. There are bonus seconds, and look at that, getting up towards 100 kilometres an hour on this descent.
One thing for that, Declan, it's #fast, I think.
I'll try this at home.
Yeah, there's not much you can do when you get up to these sorts of speeds. They'll be riding on a maximum gear of 53/11, so it's about getting as aerodynamic as possible. It looks like the gap is coming down. Seconds. It's very, very dangerous indeed.
So Spilak at the back of this group here, so that can only mean that it is Moreno up front. So the caption you saw a little earlier was incorrect.
Yeah, Redondo also in there, midway through that group.
The only problem is they haven't gone to Astana. There's 2 riders from Astana behind, and one of those is going to sacrifice himself to close down this gap.
Just coming together now.
So not quite able to happen on that occasion. We're inside 7 kilometres to go. Who's going to be next to attack?
Yeah, some very interesting little skirmishes here. This is one of the groups a little bit further down the road, only about 15 or 20 seconds containing Peter Sagan there. Just in second wheel, he's in that blue jersey of Mountains leader.
Pozzovivo is there as well. Chava is there for Orica Green Edge.
Yes, Trek Factory Racing actually trying to bring this gap back, which is quite interesting considering they've got Arredondo in the mix. Geraint Thomas taking that corner a little bit wide there. Thankfully stays upright to slot back into last man. That was a little bit close for the Welshman.
So Moreno just ahead of him. As this group absolutely drilling it, and there can be nothing held back at this point because they enjoy just a narrow advantage. Tom Dumoulin has worked, well, not miracles, it was hard work indeed to get back into this group and to keep himself in contention. And what a fantastic job he's doing. In the yellow jersey, sitting fourth wheel at the moment, must be feeling a little bit lonely in there right now.
It certainly is. But he's having to have his wits about it. There's two riders from Aston there, two riders from Katusha. He's just got to make sure that if there's any splits in the front half, he doesn't want to be left isolated. But again, on this sort of terrain now, he's in his element. He got detached on the climb, but paced himself extremely well, and he has got the sort of horsepower, if he's riding well, to shut those gaps down. But the second group on the road, I estimate that's around 15 or 20 seconds, but far more cohesion here. And it's Trek Factory Racing trying to bring this gap back down. A rider from Movistar also in the mix, and of course BMC there too, as well as riders from Lotto NL Jumbo.
Trek Factory Racing, BMC have missed the move up front. Domenico Pozzovivo sitting second last man here. Chavez for Orica Greenedge at the back of the group, not contributing to the chase. Tom Dumoulin goes to the front to try and reinforce his jersey situation, trying to deter any attacks. And now we're getting a little bit of cohesion in the group up front as they realise they've got to ride and make the most of this opportunity, because it is an opportunity.
It certainly is. They are starting to work together. It's the first stage to start trying to set the scene in terms of the general classification. When you look at the parkour, that's why we saw riders of the class of Jakob Fuglsang attacking. And as Aston have said openly in the press that this is a race they want him to win en route to supporting Vincenzo Nibali in the Tour de France. And I must admit, the way Fuglsang rode on that climb, very, very impressive indeed.
So Jurasek is in there for Lampre Merida. He's the man that's been doing the riding on the front. Arredondo's in there. Fuglsang we've seen a lot of. So too Pino. Moreno. What a great advantage he is as well for the Astana team, who have two representatives in the move. Team Katusha have got two riders there. Francis de Jure represented by Thibaut Pinot. Giant Alpecin, just one rider, but he happens to be the overall race leader. Just one rider too for the Team Sky squad. That's Geraint Thomas sitting second last man. And Lopez Moreno at the back of the group has a little look over his shoulder. Fuglsang, his teammate, just a little bit ahead. It's Lopez Moreno that has to close this gap on behalf of Fuglsang. He's playing it cagey. It's
really, really cagey. See Fuglsang. The thing is, you can only do that so much, and you end up last man, so then you have to close the gap. But some real gamesmanship there by the Danish rider, eventually getting towed back to the group. But a rider you wouldn't necessarily want to be sat on the wheel of on the flat, and that's Arredondo. Hardly any shelter from the wind there. Pinot throws off a bottle. The race leader goes to the front. Geraint Thomas over the top.
Well, who would you pick out from this group? Who's got the sprint? We're inside 4 kilometres to go. We're not a whole lot north of 3 kilometres, if even that, as they go through another one of those banners. Riders going right and left and going off the front. Who's going to chase this one? Thibaut Pinot decides to try his luck. He's not going to wait for a sprint. Has a little look over his shoulder, realises that he's got a gap. Jakob Fuglsang goes across to him, and a little gap left there by his teammate Lopez Moreno, and that it could well be the encouragement for these two riders to go for it. Fuglsang it is that establishes an advantage. Pino realises he's got a ride to get back on the wheel, and Geraint Thomas it is that feels that he's got to do a job to close it. Yeah, Tom Dumoulin, what has he got left in the tank?
Tom Dumoulin riding very, very strongly. Need a lovely little move there by the riders from Astana. The Lopez just let the wheel go, and then obviously Fuglsang picked it up. Pinot was close to it, but as you see, Geraint Thomas try and accelerate across the gap. Just shows how well Fuglsang is going at the moment. We're heading into the last couple of kilometres. This is now where the riders, they either ride together or they go for the stage win. Very, very nervous at the moment.
Well, Danny Moreno is in there, and that one has been. Here comes Geraint Thomas. Tom Dumoulin's all over that one.
Yeah, wouldn't give him an inch at the moment. Senses the danger. Geraint Thomas glances over his shoulder, flicks his elbow again. Dumoulin goes, and it's Moreno with Thibaut Pinot on his wheel who shuts them down.
While every attack looks like there's somebody willing to close the gap, Tom Dumoulin finds himself on the front. Inside 2 kilometres remaining on stage 2. Will he see this as a signal that he needs to ride it all the way to the line? No, he eases off the throttle a little bit. Geraint Thomas goes to the front, but he doesn't want to do it either. This is cagey. Will this allow the other group chasing behind to get back on? Because, well, there's inside half a minute. Surely they're not going to let that gap go. You sort of think these riders up front should be making the most of this opportunity. There are general classification riders in there.
It certainly is. It's Potalivo who takes this group of about 7 or 8 riders through, but 28 seconds with only 1,500 metres to go. A little bit of a big ask unless this group comes to a complete grinding halt. I don't think that's going to happen. It's Jurasek on the front. Geraint Thomas in second place. Danny Moreno there, followed by Fuglsang now towards the back of the group.
Lopez Moreno's the other Astana in there.
1 kilometre now to go. Still Jurasek there. Geraint Thomas. If you look at the composition of this group in relation to riders with real speed at the finish, I'd say Geraint Thomas could be one of the fastest finishers here.
Yeah,
but they really are slowing down here. But Tom Dumoulin pretty fast as well. Yeah,
he's capable of generating huge power. You'd never describe him as a pure sprinter. We're inside the final kilometre. We're heading down into Rockkreuz, and they're looking around themselves because the group is coming up behind, and they had, well, Jurasek decides he's not going to wait for it. Who's going to close the gap? This could be the winning move. It's absolutely perfectly timed. No one wants to chase it down. 2 teams represented with 2 riders behind, but they've left it late. They're not riding, and there's every chance that the other group behind are going to close up to them, but there's no one going to stop Jurasek at this stage because the man from Team Lamprecht through the final corner, looking very strong, looking like he's going to be able to hang out of the saddle, going it for the line, racing towards glory on this, the first road stage, stage 2 of the Tour of Switzerland. It's Christian Jurasek that races clear inside the final 300 metres. Nothing's going to stop the 27-year-old now. He's got clear daylight between himself. He can't believe his luck. They're sprinting behind, but they won't get to him. It's a famous victory in the Tour of Switzerland. He has time to celebrate. Points at the colours, 2 arms wide. The winner of stage 2 is Christian Jurasek, who gets up to take it behind. And it looks like
Danny Moreno looked like he took second from Arredondo.
But look how close the group behind was, so there wasn't much of a GC gain from those riders. Still, huge gaps on the road, and this stage is delivered as promised. It's Christian Jurasek that takes the victory.
Well, what a